There are houses the world forgets. They slip out of memory the way breath slips from glass, fading, vanishing, until only a rumor remains. At the edge of Hollow Creek, wrapped in vines and silence, stands one of those places. Locals call it the Forgotten House. They say it doesn't want to be remembered. They say it remembers you instead. For years it sat behind a rusted gate, surrounded by the bones of trees and the slow rot of time. Windows like blind eyes, a roof that sagged under decades of rain. Nothing inside moved, not dust, not air, until the night three strangers arrived, chasing something they didn't understand. They came for content, for views, for a story that would make people shiver safely behind screens. But the house had been waiting far longer than any audience. The storm had followed them from town, a thin drizzle that turned the road into mud and the air into metal. When they reached the gate, the lock was already hanging open. No one spoke. Even the night seemed to hold its breath. Beyond the gate the path narrowed, and every step sounded like a question the earth didn't want answered. The first glimpse came as a flash of lightning, a shape too large, too crooked to be a home. In that brief white glare the windows reflected nothing, only darkness looking back. Inside, the air changed. It always does in places like this. Temperature means nothing to a structure that has learned to breathe on its own. The walls exhaled the scent of dust, wet wood, and something older, the faint sweetness of decay. Footsteps echoed as if the hallways were deeper than they should be. Furniture had long since collapsed into skeletons of wood. Wallpaper peeled away in curling tongues. The house had been empty for 50 years, but dust lay thin, disturbed, as though someone had walked there yesterday. The floorboards moaned under invisible weight. Somewhere above, a slow rhythm tapped. Not rain, not wind, but deliberate, patient knocks spaced like the ticking of a clock. There was a photograph on the wall, warped with moisture. The faces were gone, dissolved into a sphere of yellow and gray, yet the eyes, faint outlines of eyes, remained. They seemed to follow every movement, aware, hungry. Lightning flared again through the cracked ceiling glass, lighting a grand hallway and the remnants of a staircase that leaned like a dying tree. At its foot sat a child's toy, a music box shaped like a carousel. It turned without hands, producing a lullaby slow and broken, the sound of memory warped by years of silence. The melody wound through the halls, echoing between rooms. With every note the air thickened, and the shadows shifted slightly, as if listening. The scent of old perfume drifted past, faint, floral, impossibly fresh. The house was remembering. A gust of wind should have come through the broken windows, but none did. Still, the chandelier above began to sway. The clink of crystal sounded like whispers, a language of glass. The longer one stood there, the more the rhythm beneath the house became clear. The pulse of something alive, deep within the wood and stone. Upstairs, dust footprints trailed down a hallway that no one had walked in decades. The footprints were small, a child's size, and they stopped outside a narrow door at the end. Beyond it lay a bedroom preserved as if waiting. A tiny bed, a cracked mirror, toys half buried in dust. And on the wall, written in what time had turned brown, were two words, "Welcome back." Lightning died. The house went completely dark. For a moment there was nothing but the sound of breathing, not human, not steady, but layered, as though many throats whispered at once. The storm outside grew distant, muffled. The forgotten house had swallowed its new guests whole. Minutes passed, or hours. Inside, time folded over itself. The temperature dropped until frost traced the window panes from the inside out. The air became a mirror of the graveyard outside, cold, absolute, endless. Somewhere below, the front door closed softly, though no wind had moved. The latch clicked like a locked ceiling. The music box began again, its lullaby reversing itself, playing backward now, unraveling the melody note by note, until it was no longer music, but a cry. And the house listened. There are things built on cursed ground that never die. They only forget long enough to fool the living. The Ravenwood family had learned that in 1974, when they vanished without a trace. People said they moved away, Others said lightning struck and fire erased them. The truth was simpler. The house consumed them and erased the evidence. All that remained were echoes, and echoes always wait for new voices to fill their shape. Outside, Hollow Creek slept beneath its blanket of rain. Streetlights flickered. The clock on the church tower struck 3 times. At that same moment, the house exhaled a slow, wet sigh that fogged the windows from the inside. On one of those panes, a handprint appeared. Small, fresh, facing inward. Down in the hallway, the camera they had carried lay on its side, recording nothing but darkness. Yet the lens twitched, a subtle refocus, as if something unseen leaned close. The red light blinked once, twice, then steadied. The screen displayed a single frame before static consumed it. The silhouette of a child standing at the foot of the stairs, eyes glowing faintly, head tilted as if listening to the heartbeat of the walls. Then silence. The rain eased. The clock outside marked another minute that didn't matter. Within those walls, time stopped trying to leave. When morning came, the gate stood open again, swinging gently in the breeze. No footsteps led away from it. The car parked by the roadside was empty, keys still in the ignition, headlights dead. On the passenger seat lay a single item, the music box, perfectly clean, its carousel frozen mid-turn. A smear of dust traced one simple word across its lid: stay. Locals would find it later and whisper their own endings. They would say it was just another story. But sometimes, on cold nights when fog rolls down from the hills, the lullaby plays again, faintly, drifting from the trees, and those who hear it forget whatever road they were on. They find themselves walking toward the gate without knowing why, toward the place Hollow Creek pretends doesn't exist. The forgotten house never calls twice. It simply waits for the next memory to wander in, and once you step across that threshold, it remembers you forever.